Thank you, Dr. Hollowell. As he stated, my name is Bruce Beall. I'm a project manager for Zachary Industrial, and I'm currently starting a project for Dominion Virginia Power. It's a 1,320 megawatt natural gas facility in Northern Virginia. So as you can imagine, this is not my normal working environment. I appreciate your time, and thank you for allowing me a few minutes just to share a couple of my thoughts on the use of leading indicators. More importantly, on how we've done a couple of these and how they're executed at a project level. On the screen, and I'm not going to go through all of these for the sake of time, but recently we have focused on just a few high points. Industrial hygiene assessments, both qualitative and quantitative, which allow us to inform ourselves and our workforce of the hazards that they will encounter, the frequencies at which they will encounter those, and it affords us the ability to develop an action plan on how we intend to mitigate those as we execute a project. Supervisor and employee perception surveys. We've taken over the last several years a pretty healthy look at employee engagement, and we've used these surveys as a result of these. I'll describe a little bit more about that here in a second. The sharing of best practices between our projects. We measure the sharing of best practices between our projects. Quality of safety task assessments. The industry would call them toolbox meeting, JSAs, lots of different descriptions on how you do that. But I'll also touch just a little bit more on those. Supervisor skills training. We measure our efforts at how we train our supervisors and how we get them to retain the core processes and what we're expecting them to disseminate amongst the workforce in the field. And ultimately, crane safety is a big topic for everybody, and so we measure our performance both in the certifications, in the training requirements, in the retention of those, and the like. For all of those, I'm just going to touch on a couple. As you've heard, there was a description of active and passive leading indicators. We use employee survey and perception analysis. And I'll give you a case in point. For this particular project, we took the results with the team that led those, and we studied those for the project I'm on. And consistently we identified some things that we needed improvement on. And so in a passive fashion, we took those preparing for this big project coming up, and we formulated a game plan on how we were going to address those. One of those issues was very simply our employees saying, we don't feel like we have retained and we get enough communication about the activities both at a project level and at a corporate level. So our remedy was very simply in our daily radio show announcements and our safety meetings, we put snippets of information relative to that for our employees. In an active fashion, we pre-described a couple of checkpoints where we will come back in and we will measure another set of employee perception surveys, and we'll judge how well we did at improving those areas that we thought we needed improvement. So I would offer that a lot of these that are described in your toolkit that are passive can also be active, should also be active, and as you measure through those through the life cycle of project, you'll be able to determine where you can improve and how you are improving. The other that I'll spend a little bit of time on is safety task assessments, toolbox meetings. As a project manager, and I spent a little bit of time in the Marine Corps, and we measure everything, right? We measure bullets, we measure Band-Aids, we measure food, we measure productivity, we measure everything. The trick that we have found is as we started to develop this information and look at it, we could take action on lots of things well in advance. And it was pretty surprising as you started to pay attention to that. We wanted to measure our safety task assessments that our crews do every day. We wanted to measure the retention of the employees in the crew and how well they retain that information. We wanted to measure the consistency amongst our crews and our projects. And we wanted to measure the quality of that. So we set some metrics up that allowed us to do that. And ultimately what we began to do was we began to conduct STA audits. But that wasn't just me and safety professionals and managers and supervisors. We rolled these STA audits down to the craft level. So we expected every craft worker in every crew every week would conduct an STA audit. And what we found was we had an incredible amount of lessons learned amongst our crafts. They conducted these audits for individual crafts outside of their discipline. We had incredible increased communication amongst our workforce, and we had their ownership. So, as we started to do this, we realized that it's tough to do with just a bunch of managers and a bunch of safety professionals. But when we had 800 employees bought into this program, that's where we really saw the magic. So, so those are just a couple of examples of how we've rolled it out on our projects. So how do we celebrate these? What we did was we created a program called Super Crew. Lots of folks have Crew of the Month, Crew of the Week, Crew of the Project, Crew of everything. In this Super Crew, the metrics to win Super Crew was simply how well your crew fulfilled the obligation of performing these things. How many STA audits? Did everybody do a job observation? What was your housekeeping score? And that's housekeeping relative to the work environment you put your employee in, not relative to your craft. We measured those, we put them on a scorecard, we announced winners. As Mr. Mulva said earlier this morning, everybody wants to win. We were amazed at the response we got. We were amazed at how engaged and how active those folks were. So, once again, thank you for your time. Thanks for allowing me to share a couple of my thoughts.